Are you ready to transform your summer into an epic splash-tastic adventure? Say goodbye to wasteful, single-use water balloons and hello to the ultimate in reusable, eco-friendly fun with reusable water balloons. Check out the link in the video description to get yours on Amazon today.
The invitation which landed on the producer's desk at the BBC radio show, Steve Wright in the afternoon, was as intriguing as it was cryptic. The KLF require your presence at a celebratory event to mark the summer solstice. You will be met at a location to be announced and transported to the lost continent of Mu. It was the summer of 1991, and the esoteric nature of the summons was typical of the KLF. Bill Drummond and Jimmy Cauty were the world's biggest-selling pop group, with a reputation for elaborate, headline-grabbing stunts. Claire Pattenden, then a personal assistant at the Radio 1 show, was told to pack for the 3-day trip. The 22-year-old, from a deprived corner of South London, had barely traveled north of Watford, so wherever Mu was, she couldn't wait to get there. Today Claire is sitting in Ardlussa House, a 17th-century stalking lodge on a vast estate on the Isle of Jura, recounting how that obscure KLF invitation was to change the course of her life. How it led Claire to her husband Andrew Fletcher, the laird of the Ardlussa estate, to the motherhood she had yearned for and to founding an award-winning gin distillery on the Hebridean island which captured her heart. It is a love story which would never have been written, had she not been pulled into the KLF's outlandish world, more than 3 decades ago. The KLF instructed Claire and a select group of international music journalists to report to Heathrow, where they were met by the band's publicist Scott Peering. He ushered them on to a flight to Glasgow, where they caught a second plane to the remote inner Hebridean island of Islay. The small twin prop headed west, and Claire was mesmerized by the picturesque lacework of sea and land below, as they flew over Arran, the Mull of Kintyre and Gia before landing at Islay's windswept dot of an airport. Claire said, "When we landed, I thought we were in Scandinavia or somewhere. I didn't have a clue where Islay was." They were bussed north to Islay's Portiskeag, where they picked up the ferry to Jura, the island the KLF had reimagined as the lost continent of Mu, the Babylonian spirit of chaos. As the little ferry navigated the slither of sea between the neighboring islands, Claire marveled at the untamed beauty of Jura ahead. The Paps, a moody trio of scree-clad mountains, rose up from an empty, rugged wilderness. It was a landscape alien to a girl raised in the congested confines of London, and yet she felt an instant affinity to the place. She said, "I was amazed by how beautiful it was. I had grown up in an impoverished part of Croydon and I had never seen anything like it. The island felt like the piece of the jigsaw that had been missing for me. It was like magic." On the slipway to greet the group, were Cauty and Drummond, sat behind a desk and dressed as border guards of their imaginary domain of Mu. The journalists, who had come from as far afield as America and Japan, had their passports stamped with the KLF logo, unaware the defacement rendered them invalid for their return journey. Claire said, "We knew when we saw Bill and Jimmy in full military garb that something very surreal was happening, but we just went with the flow. I was young and naive, and I was loving it." The KLF had hired islanders to accommodate and transport the visitors, and at the isolated ferry stop, the designated driver for Claire was a 19-year-old boy in a beaten-up Toyota. He might have been scruffy, but Andrew Fletcher was the son of one of the largest landowners on Jura. They drove the 25 miles north on the island's single-track road, to her lodgings and his family home Ardlussa House. The grand, whitewashed house overlooked the Sound of Jura and sat above its own bleached, sandy bay, where at dusk otters would forage on the shoreline. To the north was Cor of Wrekin, the majestic but treacherous whirlpool where George Orwell almost drowned when his boat capsized, while he was living on the island writing 1984. Claire had never stayed anywhere so beguiling and remote as Ardlussa House. The journalists learned they were to perform in a music video. They were filmed, draped in yellow capes, while Cauty in pagan robes led them like a Pied Piper across the Paps. As the troupe traversed boulders and bogs, they belted out Justified and Ancient, the band's hit single featuring singer Tammy Wynette. That night, the group